Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. The last time we did a story video, we discussed Boromir from the movie Lord of the Rings, as well as the book. This time I wanted to take a look at Aragorn. He's sort of like an opposite of what the character Boromir represented, where Boromir represented the actual human experience. Aragorn is more of a heroic ideal rather than a person that you actually would meet. Aragorn, son of Arathorn. A little bit about him. He is a heir to Elendil by the northern kingdom of Arnor. Arnor succumbed to a supernatural plague brought on by the Witch King of Agmar. So, while the people of Arnor were not completely wiped out, they were greatly diminished to the point where they became rangers or a form of hermits. One of the things that we need to keep in mind here is that Aragorn was and is the true king of Gondor. One of the things that Isildur did before he left Gondor is he said that whoever came later, if he was the son of Isildur, could take the throne of Gondor. Now, this wasn't an issue later on because the king of Gondor had died centuries before the events of Lord of the Rings. He had died while at sea, but this allowed Aragorn to step into the role of becoming king, as you see in the movie Return of the King. Now, one of the things that we want to make sure that we keep in mind is that in the book, Aragorn knew he was going to be taking over as king. So he had spent his entire life preparing to become king, not just the idea of, I'm going to be king, therefore I don't need to do any work, but rather I need to develop myself so I can become the best king possible. As opposed to that, the movie Aragorn was different. Now, the reason why he was different is because Tolkien and Peter Jackson were trying to create two different subversive tropes. First, with the book, Aragorn is a character that is not seen as verbose or over the top, but a quiet type of strength. Whereas with Peter Jackson, he's trying to undo the stereotypical macho man type of leader that was prevalent in the 80s and early 90s. If you remember correctly, that Lord of the Rings was written in the late 90s, before the release date of 2001. So these are the types of perspectives that each director or each creator had in the story that they were trying to tell. So while Aragorn in the book was somebody who was expecting to take over to the point where he actually carried the broken sword that we saw in the previous video around with him. Whereas in the movie, he has to be given it by Elrond after it has been forged, after it has been remade. It's only then that the Aragorn character changes from a reactive to a proactive type of mindset. One of the other things we're keeping in mind is the name Elisar. Elisar, unless you could have missed this, but in the book it's made very clear, the name Elisar means Elfstone. This is something that Galadriel calls Aragorn in the book. The reason why is this is more of a prophecy rather than an actual name. So when they call Aragorn Elisar, it's because he wears an elfstone at the end of Return of the King. That is a name, a nickname that the people of Gondor give him. But he's called that even before that by Galadriel. Now, what is the heroic ideal? The heroic ideal is not necessarily somebody who embodies every single particular aspect of what is heroic, but rather the heroic ideal is somebody who exemplifies or emphasizes a particular idea of what is heroic. So, for instance, Superman. Superman is a character who is almost all-powerful, somebody who is able to lift the whole world without sweating. There was a movie where they showed this, where Superman was able to lift the whole earth several times without being exposed to sun before he would even start to sweat. The heroic ideal for Superman is meekness. Now, I've mentioned this before. Meekness is not the same as weakness. Weakness means you're incapable of achieving something, whereas meekness is you are capable of achieving things, but you are refraining from doing so until needed. The idea is that a sword is meek when it's in its scabbard. It is capable of doing great things, great harm to others, but when it's in its sheath, it is a meek weapon. It is unable to or unwilling to do great harm to those around him. Another person that we can take a look at when it comes to the heroic ideal is Captain America. We see this particularly in the movies recently, is he is trying to do the good thing. He's trying to be the good person. That is something that is emphasized on in the first movie, Captain America First Avengers. His goal was to be a good man, to do the right thing. Yes, he had strength. He had ideals, but it was about following through what was good rather than what was easy. What we're going to do now is actually take a look at some videos and see how Peter Jackson showed these heroic ideals in the movie Return of the King. Here, this is soon after the Battle of Minas Tirith. This is after Aragorn went and summoned the army of the dead, people that had been oath breakers earlier on in their life. Aragorn, with the help of the sword, went to summon them so that they could come in and rescue Minas Tirith to fulfill their oath. There was a curse that the Sildar put on these people so that they couldn't have rest until they fulfilled their oath. Aragorn was the only one that could actually give them that fulfillment of their oath. Now, what's this showing is the fact that Aragorn could have used these people as a way of attacking, to use their strength as his own to take over what's going on. Here, we see Gandalf bowing his head to Aragorn, showing that he acted kingly in releasing them. By fulfilling his promises to them, he allowed them to leave. In the book, Aragorn actually never goes into the city except for when he's asked to do so in this next video. He says pretty early on that he will not enter Gondor, he will not enter Minas Tirith until the time is right for him to take the crown. But because of the events of the Battle of Pelennor Fields, there is people who are sick, and it's not just in the movie, it's Arwen, but in the book, it's also Faramir. There's a quote in the book where it says, "The hands of the king are the hands of a healer." The idea is another part of what makes a heroic person is that he is not somebody that can only kill. He's not only somebody who can destroy. And Aragorn is pretty proficient at this. He is by far one of the most powerful people in the world. With the exception of certain elves and Gandalf, he is probably up there. Second only to Gandalf, he is the most powerful person in the Fellowship. Here, this is a scene where Eomer finds out that his sister, Arwen, was hurt during her engagement. This is a shock to him, and he has no idea what's going on. She is carried into the city, at which point in the books, Aragorn is asked to come and heal them. Now, he enters the city under cloak, so he's not seen as somebody who is coming in triumphantly, but rather under the night, under the ability so that he can not cause a stir. Here, we see basically what happens in the book. This is from the extended edition, and it's not necessarily talked about in the theatrical edition. But what goes on here, and they don't really mention, is they actually use kingsfoil. And if you remember correctly, kingsfoil is the herb that is used early on to actually help heal Frodo in the first movie/book. He uses both of these to cast away or to get rid of the evil that was inhabiting Arwen. At the same time, he was also using it to cast out the evil from Faramir because he received his wounds at the hands of the orcs. In this next portion of the video, which we're looking at one of the great speeches of the movie. Here, we see Aragorn. He has just killed the Black Númenórean, the mouth of Sauron. Here, we see that Aragorn is not just somebody who is capable of being subtle, but capable of drawing attention to himself when needed. And the point of this whole scene was that Aragorn, as well as the other members there, were there to draw Sauron's eye, to give Frodo the chance of taking the ring and destroying it. Here, we see Aragorn calming his men, calming the people of Gondor and Rohan. Here, we see Aragorn strengthen those around him to delve into that royal bloodline to affect positively the people that are around him, the soldiers that he is leading into combat, most of them recognizing that this is going to be their end. This is going to be the day that they die, recognizing that this isn't a fight that they are going to win, but it is something that they have to do for the sake of Middle-earth. That self-sacrificing part is what I want to touch on here, that Aragorn was not just somebody who could fight and win, but somebody who jumped on the live grenade, as it were, to protect other people. He was willing to sacrifice himself so that Sauron would be focused on him rather than on his own place, allowing Frodo the chance to destroy the ring. Now, to recap all of that, what I want to make sure is that we need to make sure that we are telling our stories not just so that they are realistic, but that there's an element of expectation, an element of reaching for a goal, an ideal that can be achieved. So the idea that I want to make sure that I stress here is that this isn't just a situation where we're talking about this person is doing this thing, but how can that person, how can that heroic ideal be emulated by our readers? People want to achieve things. We don't read books where the person is a slouch. The main character isn't doing anything. The person feels sorry for them. Those are not the books that connect with our readers. So therefore, taking it that way, we should be aware that we should be giving them an ideal, something to root for, somebody to say, hey, this is a good person that I want to follow after. In the next video, we're going to go over a number of different ways that we can actually help create this ideal for our readers that they can latch on to. All right, everybody, thanks for watching the video. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comments below. Until next time, bye.
I am a poor wayfaring stranger. I'm traveling through this world of woe, yet there's no sickness, toil, nor danger in that bright land to which I go.